Hello, I'm Aisha Hogan from the International Academy of Universal Self-Mastery, which you know that already. And I'm here with my wonderful guest, GP Walsh, who is also one of our founding faculty. So, hey, GP, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for asking me, Aisha. That's great.
So you've been with us since the beginning of
Pretty
IAUSM.
much.
You've been with us pretty much since the beginning, and you've seen
Yeah.
all the evolution. Let's call it evolution. That's a nice word.
That's
The
a nice word.
evolution
Yes.
that we've gone through. And I guess what I want to sort of first talk about before we get into the amazingness of who you are, but what I first want to talk about is just really, even when you're following your path, even when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, even when you're following your divine mission, how obstacles and stuff can show up.
Well, it's one of the big illusions that somehow I'm on my path, so everything's going to be wonderful. It's all rainbows and dolphins, right? No, there's no such thing. I mean, life happens the way it does. As they like to say in Zen, there is no obstacle on the path. The obstacle is the path.
Yeah.
A vision is something that you embody. It's not an automatic thing. God said it, and therefore it shall be. Well, it shall be if you grow into the energetic signature that matches it. So a vision for something wonderful for the world is first for you.
Right.
It is first for your invitation to grow, and that invitation. And sometimes the visions we have don't actually go anywhere because that was not their purpose. They were
Right.
to lead. They were to lead you along, and so the obstacles, what appear to be obstacles or troubles, or the evolution, the roller coaster, that is the path, right? Because that's how we grow. You don't, no critter on the planet grows without adversity.
That's true. That's true. If we did everything right the first time and we never ever had any kind of obstacles with challenges in front of us or any kind of struggles or anything, how would we learn anything?
We wouldn't evolve at all. I mean, alligators and sharks have both remained exactly the same for the last 50 million years.
You know what? I never even thought of that. You're right.
Because they got to a certain point at the top of the food chain and nothing has arisen to challenge them since. So they have not adapted anymore. They haven't changed.
Right.
And so it is our interaction with the environment that we bitch and moan about that's actually the key ingredient to us growing into the very thing we really seek to be.
Yeah, because I honestly, with everything that's happened with IAUSM, I don't think if I'd been this far in my journey, before IAUSM, I don't know, how I would have handled everything that's happened, because everything that's happened, I've kind of sit there and go, okay, why did this show up for me? Mm-hmm. It's kicking the Zen out of me, but why did this show up for me? And what am I learning from this?
Well, that's it. Because it's always a personal experience. Yes, the mission of IAUSM, right, on its own is one thing, but it has a very personal mission for you because it came to you.
Right.
And its mission for you was to transform you.
Yeah. And I'm learning, I'm learning what it's like to be a visionary. I'm learning what it's like to lead a team.
Yes.
Because I've been a loner most of my time. So it's been, it's been quite a thing. I don't even know what to call it.
And it will continue. That never stops, by the way.
Right.
Much as we will complain about it, it never stops. Besides, nobody would start on this path if we knew what it involved.
Right. Right?
If I had any idea what it was like, never mind, I'll work in a cubicle wearing a little tie the rest of my life.
Right. Because there's so many things that can go wrong. I mean, I can't even, wow. There's been so much. I can't even go into it all. But let's talk about you, GP, and some of the obstacles and growing moments of your life that have taken you from one extreme, from being a single dad, doing, every time I talk to you, tell me about a different job position you've had in your life. So how did you get from all of those places? And some of them were like, for those of you that don't know GP, and excuse me if I say it like the title of it wrong, but it's like you helped, or you did create the initial program for the first ATM machine.
Not quite.
Okay. How did that go?
It was the first system where the ATMs could talk to each other. So
okay.
You could walk into a bank in Nebraska and take out your money from your account in Paris. So it was an international communications system.
Okay. Got it.
That tied it all together.
And then I think you did something for national defense. Am I wrong?
No, I didn't do anything for.
Okay, then I am wrong. So somebody else was quoting some of this stuff to me, and but then you were like a mailman.
I was a mailman. I was a janitor. I was a cook in a daycare center. I was a roofer. I was a stupid kid, right? Who had a tremendous spiritual experience, and assumed that like everyone does, well, that's it. It's all rainbows and dolphins from now. It's just all going to be, wonderful. And the fact that I was completely and totally dysfunctional. I'd come from a dysfunctional background. My mother was mentally ill. I had no skills whatsoever. And I was just completely a total babe in the woods. And I married somebody completely inappropriate. Right. Too young. I ended up with 2 sons, and I had to take care of them. That I knew, right? I was not irresponsible. I was just stupid.
No, you were just on a really great path. I think that the dysfunction in our lives, everybody says, I came from a dysfunctional past. I'm one of the first people to say that, right? So I came from a dysfunctional past. But I think that the people who go through the roughest, toughest, and I'm not taking away from people whose lives were a little smoother, but those people who have gone through some really tough and rough things in their lives, I think there's a moment, that where hopefully that you make that switch where you stop being the victim of your story and you start being, okay, well, you know what? I actually like all the parts of my story, even the hard parts, because it brought me to who I am now. It gave me the tools.
There's an equanimity that eventually settles in if you spiritually mature. But some people can remain bitter their entire lives, but eventually it all catches up. Eventually you surrender to the inevitable, and and as a result you stop looking at it as a disaster, and you say, well, this is what life is, and it's up to me as whether it's going to be a disaster or not. It's completely up to me, and this is the hand you were dealt, right? People, why this isn't fair? Well, it's only fair because you don't want it.
True.
Yeah, I wanted to be born rich, tall, and handsome, and just kind of didn't happen.
Oh, you're handsome. I don't know about tall. I can't tell. So how do we get from program and tech to mailman to roofer to doing what you do now? You're basically like an Enlightenment Guru.
Well, at the age of 19, I had a very significant, unsought spiritual experience. It was a divine intervention, and I was just a drugged out rock and roll drummer. That's what I did. That's what I wanted to do.
Drummer. We got to add that to the list of things.
Drummer. Drummer. Yeah. And I'd known for a while. I was only 19. I'd started doing drugs when I was 15. I was a juvenile delinquent at 12. I mean, running from the police and stuff. Nobody would have spotted me for a spiritual teacher. Oh yeah, that's clearly his destiny. Exactly the opposite. but I knew I was stuck. Right. Yeah, I knew I was going nowhere, and eventually I didn't. I just didn't want to live. It just everything just sucked terribly, and this very profound experience just came absolutely out of nowhere, which with really within a couple of months had completely transformed everything had fallen away, and a completely new life emerged. And at the heart of the insight was the realization that in every being is an original innocence, an original
Right.
purity, something that has never ever been touched. Um, but that we had mistaken the programming and conditioning and all of the stuff that every human being goes through for ourselves. And therefore, all of the dysfunction and terrible stuff that we've been taught and learned and embodied isn't actually myself. And my mission became to figure out how to separate those two. So you had the pure, innocent you, right, that had finally been separated from the conditioning. Well, I saw the innocence part, which completely transformed me.
Right.
It was the other part that literally took decades to work out. This was 1971, right? Course of Miracles hadn't even been written yet, right?
Right.
Hadn't even been thought of. There was no consciousness movement. The only self-help book that existed was Think and Grow Rich, which I think is a
Right.
horrible, horrible book, actually.
You're the first person I've ever heard to say
I
that.
know. I know. I'll tell you about that sometime. But uh, that was it. And there was that book on the psychology shelf in the bookstore. I mean, it wasn't a section, right? That was
Right.
all there was. And I'm just this kid in the small town in Illinois, right? So there was no resources. There were no teachers. I'd never heard the word enlightenment or awakening, right? I mean, I hadn't heard of a yoga. I mean, you can't swing a cat now with hitting hitting a yoga studio,
True. True.
right? But at that time, it was like, what's that? It doesn't exist,
Right.
right? Um, and so I'm just kind of fumbling along, even though on one hand I'm talking to God, and on the other hand I don't know how to tie my shoes. I'm dysfunctional. I do not know how to be in life, and I'm just kind of bouncing here and there. And so, as I said before, I got married young to somebody who was completely inappropriate, who didn't even really love me, um, and had two kids. And all of a sudden now I'm this dysfunctional person talking to God with a responsibility that I had no idea how to deal with.
Right.
And during that time, I just did whatever I had to do. At one time, I was working 3 jobs just to have enough money to take care of them and the like. And that's when I did all the different jobs, anything I could get my hands on.
Right.
And
But that says something in and of itself, right? Because some people let the situation take them over, go right into that lack mind. I can't do anything, and those kids don't get taken care of, and they're not being fed or whatever it is, and
yeah.
and you fall. You allow yourself to fall, but you never did that.
Yeah, miraculously, there was always something that was sustaining me, something kind of holding me up, and it was really quite accidental. I was working on a shipping dock, right, at this place, and I realized that what I was shipping, one of the things that was getting shipping was a computer, and this was early in this. This was before PCs existed.
Right.
The Apple II didn't even exist at this point. It was kind of this specialized computer that was mostly sold from Hewlett Packard to the Army. Um, and I said, and I looked at that and I said, now those guys make pretty good money, I think. I'm not kidding. That was my whole right. I got a raise to $5 an hour. I was like beside myself. It was so wonderful. So I asked the manager of the place. I said, can I play with this? Is it okay? And he said, sure, go ahead. Actually, there's one in the lab. You can play with it if you want. So I went to the library and I got my book, a book called Basic,
Right.
and I
Basic.
sat down and I went through the whole book. And the inventory manager, the center manager, saw me doing. He says, will you do a project for me? And I said, overtime? And he said, yes, overtime. I said, good. Okay, yes, I'll do it. So he had some experience. He showed me what to do. He didn't know how to program, but he showed me what had to happen and how it worked, and he helped me work out a few things. And I designed this program. It wasn't very well done, but it worked.
Right.
And these guys, it was a leasing company of some very expensive electronic equipment, right? And they were writing off it was like $75 million a month, a quarter of lost inventory because they just couldn't track it.
Right.
They would take an inventory and it would take them a month and a half to reconcile. And by that time, stuff's gone in and out. So
Right.
they were writing off that much every quarter. So I shrank the process from 6 weeks to 2 days. It got noticed, right? Next time they sent me to do it somewhere else. The next time, the entire company is sending me all, right? And now I'm saving them some money. I said, you know what? How about a little something for the effort? and they said, yeah, okay. So they actually moved me out to San Francisco from Chicago. I an office. I had all this equipment, and I basically started doing all this stuff for them. I'm just this completely naive kid, right? I don't know that I can't do this stuff. But I started making the regular data processing department look bad. So they dragged me in to take control over me, and then for the first time I saw what that industry was really like. At the time, it was horrible. I mean, little ties, right. And then was the cubicle and the whole deal. But in that period of time is when I got exposed to the bigger world, the right. bigger machines, the way things actually worked. And I had one really remarkable experience that kind of sums up the way everything has happened. I had to learn this machine, this huge, significant machine banks were using and that sort of thing. And so I know nothing. I had this one little book. I've never taken a course.
The bank system is relying on this boy with a book. Okay.
Yeah, I know nothing, right? So I start taking home manuals, trying to figure. Now, in those days, it wasn't like now. In those days, the manuals were literally 8 feet high and 10 feet. There was just so much about these machines. Well, I'm taking these home now at night, and I'm reading them. And the more I read, the more confused I get, right? Until the point I said, I'm screwed. You know, my big opportunity is screwed. It's back to the warehouse. And I'm on the bus on the way home, reading one of these books, just completely discouraged. And that very familiar little voice comes and says, Greg, it's not about accumulation. It's about unfoldment. I shut that book and I never read another thing about computers since. And one thing led to another. And the first big thing I got, probably a year later, I got a job as a contractor. In 1984, I was in business for myself, never worked for anybody ever since. I started contracting. I started getting hired by, Wells Fargo and, banks and that sort of stuff. Seems I had a bit of a knack to it. And the first thing that really put me on the map is I got hired by, at that point, it was called Pacific Bell, it became SBC.
Right.
And it was the first time anybody had successfully hooked up PCs and mainframe computers. I replaced 20,000 terminals with 20,000 PCs. I cut their contact time from 20 minutes to a minute and a half.
Wow.
Of the contact with.
That's amazing.
And Kodak had tried it, Xerox had tried it, all sorts of companies had tried it and failed. So it was all over the media, the media, that this had finally happened, right? And now it's commonplace. That's all you ever see, right? But it had never been done before. For the life of me, I don't know how. I don't know how it happened. Just one idea after another. It's this. It just happened, right? And now at the same time, remember, I'm well aware of the spiritual dimension. I mean, that's what saved my ass in the first place, right? So it's not like but I was beginning to grasp it in the most practical and earthy way. It was not esoteric. It was not out there. It was very human. It was very here. And I kept getting, the higher I go, the closer to the earth I get. And so one thing after another, but at the same time, people would come to me, they'd ask me questions about things, and the answers would just come. I could just see what people were thinking, what they were feeling, what they needed. And one of the, while on one side of me, my whole disposition, my sense of self, my ego was being purified and worked over, right, by this beautiful internal force. On the other side, I'm becoming much more earthy. I'm becoming more competent. I'm becoming more be able to be there. And the psychological distortions that had been not in me, but just in me, but my entire family for generations, because mental illness had a long history. It was all just being wiped clean. And
that's awesome.
And I began to realize that this whole process of spiritual awakening was not a big flash of angels singing and, the Red Sea parting.
Well, maybe for some people.
I did. But that having an experience like that isn't enough.
Right.
It really has to move south. I mean, it has to colonize this entire system, so that it goes from just an experience to something that's in your heart, that you feel, to something that takes over your entire life. And it's like you disappear, and this other new creature appears. Same body, but it's kind of like you're a walk-on, walk-on in your own life.
So what are you doing now? So now you have several courses. You have your own courses everywhere else. You've got courses that you brought into IAUSM that you'll be teaching. What is like the life of GP now?
The life of GP now is just, Papa G put it beautifully. Papa G is a great spiritual master, and they asked, well, what do you do with your day? How do you plan? He says, well, I wake up in the morning and my shoes start moving, so I get in them.
That's awesome.
It's not really a plan anymore. Life has just become so beautifully spontaneous. And, I get to do the thing that I love most, which is to wake people up, and there's nothing arcane about that. It's simply realizing that who you thought you were, you're not.
Right.
And if that really sinks in, knowing who you truly are becomes the most important thing to you.
Yes.
And so that eventually overcomes all lesser interests and desires, because on a very practical level, who you believe yourself to be, the self-image you hold, determines the entire character and quality of your life.
Right.
And if you're acting out somebody that you're not, you can't possibly be satisfied or happy.
No, yeah. I think that a lot of people sort of, success and fulfillment, they think that it goes hand in hand.
Yes, and it does not. It does not. You have to be yourself. I always use the analogy of the whale in the swimming pool. it wasn't that long ago. There was a movie Blackfish. It was about uh, uh, Tuckamong, I think is the name of the orca, the killer whale that turned on her trainer and killed her.
Right.
Right. And everybody's so in shock, and it did lead to them, really putting more strict controls on how they did that. But how in the world would anybody expect this incredible beast, this incredible being, who will travel thousands of miles in a year, the entire ocean, which is 3/4 of the planet, right,
Right.
is their playground, and you're going to throw them in a swimming pool and think they're going to be happy.
Right.
But that's what happens to us. Our infinite curiosity, our playfulness, all of this, the uniqueness of us gets compressed into this little container by conditioning, and then we're expected to be happy, right? We're going to do self-improvement, right? We try to install the air conditioner in hell. Right? Yeah, it's a little cooler, but I'm still here, right? And that's that. Success and achievement and all of that is just one way, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not telling everybody to start wearing robes and go to a monastery. But what success and achievement will bring you is success and achievement.
Right.
It will not bring you happiness. It will not bring you fulfillment. It will bring you what it can bring you. The only thing that can bring you happiness and fulfillment is true self-knowledge. And that's all awakening is the realization, self-realization. Oh, this is what I really am.
Right.
I am really this incredibly magnificent, unlimited being. So unlimited and so magnificent that I can't even know myself. I'm just beyond what I can even know.
Right.
It's just this perpetually unfolding, wondrous thing. I seem to be a verb, is the way Buckminster Fuller.
No, it's true. It's true. And I think, it becomes like how you may never know yourself completely.
Never.
But you need to try and get there. I think that's what it is. It's about attempting to see how much of you can get to know, because too many people leave this planet, I think, never even touching the surface.
Never even touching the surface. No, you can't possibly know it all. If you did, what would happen then? It'd be like, what am I going to do? Start drinking or something? There's a great Gary Larson cartoon of some guy, he's obviously, he's in heaven. He's got the halo and he's got the wings and he's sitting on the cloud and he goes, geez, I wish I would have brought a magazine.
Now that I know everything.
The wonder of self-discovery is that it never ends.
Yeah.
You never run out of stuff. It never becomes uninteresting, and it's always fresh.
True.
Right? So you're not on this track to get somewhere, because there's nowhere to get. You get on this track because it is just perpetual joy.
Yes. So if you were going to give somebody, first of all, let's talk about some of the courses you've got. You've got like tapping on the Buddha. I'm just trying to think of who the courses you have inside IAUSM now.
The yoga of allowing.
The archetypes, the chakra archetypes.
The chakra archetypes, yes.
Right. Yeah. The yoga of allowing, the tapping on the Buddha. There's another one, healing, the healing touch, the healing.
The healing power of touch. Yes.
Yes. So there's like lots of wonderful GP courses, GP Walsh courses. And, and IAUSM is expanding and growing right now. So, because we're completely switching it up right now. We're in the process of like changing our whole back end and the whole academy and switching up our platform and everything so that we can walk into 2021 with this incredible new place to be. And that's been learning too. Lots of learning. It's about really learning. I think the one thing that I've learned through this whole last 6 or 7 months has been, as much as I listen to myself, like I'm aware of how I feel about decisions that I make before I make them, it's about, there's still that ego piece, right? Someone tells you need to do this. And sometimes it feels like a kick in your gut that tells you, no, you don't. But because you think that you should, because somebody else told you, you do it. And that's what I did, right? I made this big decision at the beginning. Well, not quite really at the beginning. And I made this decision based on someone else's opinion. And not that everyone else's opinion is not correct. It's just I jumped in thinking that that's, yes, the right thing to do, even though my body was telling me, no, it's not. And I didn't listen. And now 6 months later, I have to go back to the original plan.
Yes, well, we have to learn to listen. We've been conditioned not to.
Yeah.
And the only way we really, really get it is when we mess up, when we fall on our face and break our nose. That's the only time we really get it. I mean, there's no such thing as growth without adversity. It's just the way it is. And I know we don't like it.
Yeah.
and we really keep hoping. You know, I had this sanguine hopes early on that the spiritual path was just going to be beautiful and wonderful and easy. And it is beautiful and wonderful, but it's not easy.
But it's not easy. Like, it is not easy. So that is for sure. Like, there's a lot of things that show up, and you just sort of sit there and be like, oh my God, why is this here right now? And it's funny, the other night when I was making this big decision to go back to plan A, was I have this like red phone in my house it's not hooked up to anything. It's one of those old style push button phones. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I always call it my God phone. You know, that's my hotline to God. Right? That's my God phone. And I woke up in the middle of the night with this incredible feeling of, I should go to your altar, because I have this sort of place where I have some crystals and my candles and stuff. And it was 2:00 in the morning, and it was, go and light those candles right now. And I'm thinking, I'm sleeping. Like, why am I doing this right now? Why do I even want to do this right now? So I rolled over at first, and then I just felt it. And I was like, okay. So I got up and I lit the candles, and my dog's like, what are we doing? Why are we up? So I lit the candles, and I sat down, and I had this incredible need to pick up my little God phone. Right. And I picked it up, and I, put it here, and I started walking through my house, talking to God. Like, talking to universe, talking to spirit, talking to whatever you want to call that energy. It doesn't matter. I don't think God cares what you call it.
Yeah.
So I'm walking through, and I'm saying, I'm going through this stuff right now. And part of me is like, wants to ask you, why are you effing with me right now? Another part of me wants to say, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I not getting? What am I not hearing? What am I not listening to? And I just almost felt like I could hear words coming through the phone, and not like normal words, like if I'm having a conversation with you right now, but within my own head, I felt like I could hear responses, and, 1, 2, 3 words, phrases, not like big, long conversation. And, for a moment I thought, is that me? Is that me just putting that there? And then another moment I was like, but I wouldn't have actually told myself to do that right now. And it was a moment. And I spent about 10 minutes doing that, put the phone down, blew out all the candles, went back to bed, woke up in the morning. And with this, I know what I'm doing. I know what I have to do. It was just like a really profound experience, but it was like, if anybody had seen me, like if anybody actually had seen me walking through my house, talking on a phone that's not connected to anything, and it's not a cell phone, and having a conversation, they would have thought, okay, where are the guys with the white jacket?
Well, you've come to trust that.
Yeah.
And there is in all of us the voice of wisdom. We've just been trained to not listen to it.
That's right.
Instead, we listen to our conditioning, and our conditioning is not who we are.
Yeah.
That voice of God or spirit or the universe, that is you.
Yeah.
It's not the you know, right? But the great I am is you.
Right.
And from our normal perspective of identification with the conditioning, it sounds like it's this wisdom coming from somewhere else. But it isn't. It's the reality of you. And of course, it's the same reality of me. Right.
It's almost like you want to walk up to people, and I know this is going to sound bizarre. We actually talked about this in a different show, and it was just like, hi, I'm God. How are you? And I'm God. And so, hi, I'm God, and so are you. Like, that was just like, hi, I'm God, and so are you. But it sounds like if you say that to someone, they would be like, she thinks she's who?
Well, and
I would
and,
never
and a
say-
lot of
I would
people
never go
do
around
say
saying
that. A lot of people do say that, and it is coming from the sense of an ego. Only God can say, "I'm God."
Exactly.
So we do have to be careful about these kind, because it's very easy for the ego to say, "Hey, all right,"
Yep.
and be really proud of itself. But the ego is just your conditioning. It's how you've been taught to think about yourself. That's all
So,
there
but
is
if
to
you
it.
think about the term namaste,
Mhm.
isn't that saying like the divine in me sees the divine
Absolutely.
in you? Which isn't
Well,
that kind of the same thing? I mean, I'm not telling people to go around saying they're God, but I'm just saying, like, isn't that sort of kind of the same thing?
Of course it is, and that's the beauty of that statement, and that is when in the Indian culture where that comes from, because it's a Sanskrit word, they actually feel that way. If you show up to somebody's house in India, you are a visiting divinity.
Right.
You are an avatar. You are a manifestation of the divine that has come to their place, and they treat you like that.
Wow.
Right? There's that. It's very real for them. Right?
It should be
They
very
have a
real
very
for everybody, I think.
they have a very different. The whole East does. India in particular have a very different view. God is immanent in beings. In the West, God is separate, and everything is defined then by relationship or rules, laws. You got to do this, behave that way. That's a very primitive concept. That's Yahweh. That came from the Bronze Age and was basically the god of a warrior tribe.
Right.
Bears no resemblance to the version of divinity that you see in India, which is the real source of genuine spirituality. I mean, that's where the good stuff really came from. And you can see they have a very different culture, a very different way of being than we do in the West. The West is warrior-like, it's brutal, it's barbaric, it's
It is
cruel.
barbaric. It is barbaric.
And
Absolutely.
it comes from the basic beliefs about the nature of ourselves, right?
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you so much, GP. And I'm going to ask you to end this off with just, if you were going to give us a quick tip, something that can make people maybe see themselves differently today, what would that be?
Well, no matter what anybody says, including you, right? Whatever you say to yourself, the truth of the matter is you are not broken. You just believe yourself to be. And the path back to yourself isn't hard. It can't be. Because
Right.
you're actually already there. You've never ever been anything less than this perfect divine being. We have just been taught to think we are something else, and we
Right.
are so powerful. We literally create the experience of being someone we're actually not.
Right.
Rediscover who you are, and it's not hard because it is who you already are.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have, I don't have to tell you. It's absurd. It's like saying, "Get up and walk over to yourself."
Right. Yeah.
You
Right.
already are you.
Exactly.
Let yourself be inspired by the quest to discover who that is. You will not be disappointed.
Thank you, GP. Thank you for that. That's profound. It's true. It's so true. It's like it's so obvious. It's so true. And but thank you for putting that out there. And thank you for being part of IAUSM. Thank you for everything that you've done for IAUSM. And thank you for today, for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aisha.
I will talk to you soon. Much love, and have a fantastic rest of your day.
Bye, everybody.